Woman humiliated at luxury party. For her skin color when they discover who her husband was, everyone is left speechless. The sun was setting on the horizon, painting the sky in golden and pink hues as Emily nervously adjusted her dress for the 10th time. Her trembling fingers smoothed the silky fabric, a gift from her husband Michael for the special occasion. The 25-year-old took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing heart. She had never been to an event as elegant as the party at the Thompson mansion. "You look beautiful, my love," Michael smiled lovingly, holding his wife's hand as the car approached the imposing gates of the property. Emily returned the smile, but anxiety was still evident in her brown eyes. "Are you sure I won't make a fool of myself? I've never been to a place like this." Michael gently kissed his wife's forehead. "You're the most amazing woman I know. You'll do perfectly fine." The couple got out of the car, Emily marveling at the grandeur of the mansion before her. Impeccable gardens stretched in all directions, dotted with statues and ornate fountains. The building itself was a palace of marble and glass, its illuminated windows promising a world of luxury and sophistication. As they climbed the entrance steps, Emily couldn't help but notice the curious and sometimes disdainful glances that some guests cast in her direction. She immediately felt out of place, as if she didn't belong in this refined environment. "Mr. and Mrs. Parker, welcome." A butler with an austere appearance greeted them at the door, checking their names on a golden list. Emily and Michael entered the main hall, a dazzling space decorated with crystal chandeliers, valuable works of art, and extravagant floral arrangements. The young woman was awestruck by so much opulence. "I'll get us something to drink," Michael said, giving his wife a quick kiss on the cheek before walking away towards the bar. Alone, Emily felt even more uncomfortable. She walked timidly through the hall, admiring the decor and trying not to look so obviously out of place. That's when she heard a honeyed voice behind her. Well, what do we have here, a new guest?" Emily turned around, finding herself face to face with a stunning woman. Perfectly styled blonde hair framed a face with delicate features. Expensive jewelry adorned her neck and wrists. Her blue eyes examined Emily from head to toe with a malicious gleam. "Hello," Emily smiled hesitantly. "I'm Emily Parker." The woman raised a perfectly outlined eyebrow. "Parker? I don't recall any Parker family in our circle. Where are you from, dear?" The condescending tone made Emily cringe internally. I'm married to Michael Parker. He works at..." "Ah, I see." The woman interrupted her with a fake smile. "Must be some new employee of Daddy's. I'm Victoria Thompson, the hostess of this party. Welcome to our humble residence." The sarcasm in Victoria's voice was palpable. Emily felt her face burn with shame. "Come, dear." Victoria linked her arm with Emily's, guiding her through the hall. "Let me introduce you to some of our guests." What followed was a humiliating experience for Emily. Victoria took her from group to group, making a point of subtly emphasizing with each introduction that Emily was the wife of a simple employee. The looks of disdain and poorly disguised whispers made Emily want to disappear. "And this is Mrs. Parker." Victoria smiled maliciously at a group of elegant ladies. "She tells us she's never been to a party like this before. Isn't it adorable? So refreshing to have someone so different among us." The women laughed discreetly, casting looks of pity mixed with contempt at Emily. The young woman felt tears forming in the corner of her eyes, but refused to show weakness. That's when Victoria decided to deliver the final blow. "Tell me, Emily dear, that dress is lovely. Where did you buy it? Some department store?" Emily swallowed hard, humiliation burning in her chest. "Actually, it was a gift from my husband." Victoria laughed, a cruel and melodious sound. "Ah, how sweet. He must have saved for months to buy something like that, right? So generous of him." The other women now laughed openly, not even bothering to disguise their scorn. Emily felt as if the ground was disappearing beneath her feet. "I imagine it must be difficult for you, isn't it?" Victoria continued, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "Coming from such a simple environment and suddenly finding yourself in a world like ours must be quite a shock." Emily opened her mouth to respond, but the words got stuck in her throat. What could she say? How could she defend herself against so much gratuitous cruelty? It was at that moment that a firm male voice cut through the air. "What's going on here?" Emily turned, relief flooding her body as she saw Michael approaching. Her husband had a serious expression on his face, his dark eyes sparking with contained anger. Victoria smiled, all charm and falseness. "Ah, you must be Mr. Parker. We were just talking with your lovely wife. She's a darling, isn't she? So exotic." Michael's face hardened even more. "Exotic," he repeated, his voice dangerously low. "Well, you know," Victoria shrugged, casting a condescending look at Emily. "It's not every day we have someone so different at our parties. It's refreshing, don't you think?" Michael stepped forward, his posture changing completely. Suddenly he seemed bigger, more imposing. The change was so dramatic that even Victoria seemed to hesitate. "Different?" Michael repeated, his voice now laden with authority. "Let me clarify a few things, Ms. Thompson. My wife is not different. She's extraordinary. Intelligent, compassionate, and infinitely more gracious than anyone in this room." Victoria blinked, confused by the sudden change in attitude. "Excuse me, but who exactly do you think you are to—" "Who am I?" Michael interrupted her, a cold smile forming on his lips. "Allow me to introduce myself properly. I'm Michael Parker, CEO of Parker Enterprises and, coincidentally, the new majority owner of Thompson Industries." A stunned silence fell over the group. Victoria's eyes widened in shock and horror. "That's right," Michael continued, his voice laden with contempt. "The simple employee you so despised is, in fact, your father's boss. And let me say, Ms. Thompson, that I'm deeply disappointed with what I've witnessed here tonight." Emily watched the scene unfold, as shocked as the others. She had never imagined that her husband occupied such a high position. Michael had always been discreet about his business, preferring to lead a simple and modest life. But, Victoria stammered, her face pale with dread. "Why didn't you say anything before? Why did you let yourself be treated as a common human being?" Michael completed, his voice cutting. "Because unlike you, I don't need to flaunt my wealth or position to feel superior. My wife and I came to this party in good faith, expecting a pleasant evening. Instead, we were met with prejudice, discrimination, and a shameful display of lack of character." At this moment, a middle-aged man hurriedly approached the group. His face was red and covered in sweat. "Mr. Parker," he exclaimed, extending a trembling hand, "I didn't know you would come personally. What an honor to have you in our home." Michael ignored the extended hand, his cold eyes fixed on the newcomer. "Mr. Thompson, I presume. I must say I'm deeply disappointed with what I've witnessed tonight. Your daughter and your guests have demonstrated a level of prejudice and poor character that makes me seriously question whether I wish to maintain any kind of association with your company." George Thompson paled, panic evident in his eyes. "Mr. Parker, please, there must be some misunderstanding. I'm sure we can resolve any—" "There's nothing to resolve," Michael interrupted him. "Tonight's actions have spoken for themselves. Now, if you'll excuse us, my wife and I are leaving. We have far more important things to do than waste our time with such petty and prejudiced people." With that, Michael took Emily's hand and led her out of the hall, leaving behind a group of stunned and panicked people. As they walked to the car, Emily finally found her voice. "Michael, why did you never tell me about your work, your position?" Michael stopped, turning to face his wife. His eyes, previously cold with anger, were now full of tenderness. "Because none of that matters, my love. The money, the power, they're just tools. What really matters is who we are inside. And you, Emily, are the most incredible person I've ever met. Rich or poor, you'd be the same wonderful woman I fell in love with." Tears streamed down Emily's face, but this time they were of emotion and gratitude. Michael pulled her into a tight embrace, gently kissing the top of her head. "I'm sorry you had to go through that," he murmured. "I promise I'll do everything in my power to ensure no one else suffers what you suffered tonight." And so, under the starry sky, Emily and Michael left the Thompson mansion behind, little knowing that that night would be just the beginning of a journey that would change not only their lives, but the lives of countless other people. In the days that followed, the story of what had happened at the Thompson mansion spread like wildfire through the city's social and business circles. Many were shocked by the behavior of Victoria and her guests, while others secretly approved, revealing how deeply rooted prejudice still was in society. Michael, fulfilling his promise, began working tirelessly to promote change. He used his influence and resources to create the Parker Foundation, an organization dedicated to combating racism and promoting equality at all levels of society. Emily, in turn, found her voice and her strength. The painful experience at the party, instead of breaking her, strengthened her. She became the public face of the foundation, sharing her story and inspiring others to speak out against discrimination. However, not everyone welcomed the Parker couple's initiatives. George and Victoria Thompson, humiliated and resentful, began a veiled campaign to sabotage Michael and Emily's efforts. Victoria used her media contacts to try to tarnish Emily's reputation, spreading unfounded rumors and distorted stories about her past. George, in turn, pressured other businessmen not to support the Parker Foundation, threatening to cut business ties with anyone who allied themselves with the couple. Despite the obstacles, Emily and Michael remained firm in their mission. They organized events, lectures, and workshops in schools and companies, educating people about the importance of diversity and inclusion. The foundation also began offering scholarships to young people from marginalized communities, giving them the opportunity to access quality education. One day, as Emily prepared to give a lecture at a local university, she received an anonymous message on her phone. "Be careful what you say today. Not everyone is willing to hear your lies. Accidents happen." Emily's heart froze as she read the veiled threat. She showed the message to Michael, who immediately reinforced the security around her. "We can't let them intimidate us," Emily said, determined. "If we back down now, we'll be giving them exactly what they want." Michael nodded, proud of his wife's courage. "You're right, but promise me you'll be careful. I don't know what I'd do if anything happened to you." Emily smiled, gently kissing her husband. "I'll always be careful. But I can't, I won't. Stay silent. Our voice is our most powerful weapon against prejudice." The lecture at the university was a resounding success. Emily spoke with passion and eloquence about her experience and about the importance of actively combating racism in all its forms. The students gave her a standing ovation, many with tears in their eyes, inspired by her words. It was at this moment that Emily realized the true impact her story could have. She was no longer just Emily, the woman humiliated at a high society party. She was Emily Parker, a powerful voice in the fight against discrimination. Meanwhile, Michael was fighting his own battles behind the scenes. He discovered that George Thompson was using unethical tactics to try to sabotage Parker Enterprises' business. Contracts were mysteriously cancelled, business partners suddenly became reluctant to do business, and harmful rumors began to circulate in the financial market. Michael, however, was not a man who was easily intimidated. He gathered his legal team and began meticulously investigating each incident. Slowly, evidence began to accumulate, pointing to a conspiracy orchestrated by the Thompsons. One day, as Emily and Michael discussed the latest developments in their home office, the phone rang. It was Lucy, a young intern at the foundation, her voice trembling with excitement. "Mrs. Parker, Mr. Parker, you need to see this. It just came on TV." The couple quickly turned on the television, only to see Victoria Thompson being escorted out of a commercial building by police officers. The reporter on the scene explained that Victoria had been arrested on charges of fraud, bribery, and conspiracy. Emily and Michael looked at each other, shocked. It seemed that the Thompsons' house of cards was finally crumbling. In the days that followed, more details came to light. George Thompson was also indicted, and the investigation revealed a complex web of corruption that had been going on for years. The fall of the Thompsons sent shockwaves through the entire business community. For Emily and Michael, it was a bittersweet victory. Although they felt relieved that their persecutors had finally been exposed, they also recognized the tragedy of the situation. So many lives affected, so much damage caused, all because of wounded pride and deep-rooted prejudice. With the threat of the Thompsons neutralized, Emily and Michael were able to focus fully on their work with the foundation. They expanded their operations, establishing partnerships with other civil rights organizations and launching awareness campaigns at the national level. One of the foundation's most ambitious projects was the establishment of a community center in an underprivileged neighborhood of the city. The center offered free classes, career counseling, legal assistance, and a safe space for young people after school. It was during the inauguration of this center that Emily had an encounter that would change her perspective forever. An elderly lady approached her, tears in her eyes. "Mrs. Parker, I don't know if you remember me. I was at that party so long ago. I laughed at you along with the others." Emily felt a lump in her throat, memories of that painful night coming back. The lady continued, "I want you to know that I never forgave myself for that. Your actions since then, your courage, made me rethink everything I believed. Thanks to you, I started questioning my own prejudices. And now my granddaughter is here, benefiting from this wonderful center you created." Emily hugged the lady, deeply moved. At that moment, she understood that real change didn't come just from grand gestures or laws, but from transformed hearts and minds, one at a time. The years passed, and the Parker Foundation became a powerful force in the fight against discrimination. Emily and Michael traveled across the country, sharing their story and inspiring others to join the cause. They faced resistance, of course. Prejudice was a many-headed beast, always resurfacing in new forms. But with each challenge, they became stronger, more determined. One day, as they walked hand in hand through the garden of their home, Michael suddenly stopped, turning to face Emily. "You know, sometimes I wonder, if we hadn't gone to that party, if you hadn't gone through that terrible experience, where would we be now?" Emily reflected for a moment, her eyes lost on the horizon. "I can't say I wouldn't wish that night had never happened. The pain, the humiliation, it was horrible. But looking back at everything we've accomplished since then, at all the lives we've touched, I can't regret it." Michael nodded, pulling his wife closer. "You transformed an experience of hate into a movement of love and change. You're amazing. You know that?" Emily smiled, gently kissing her husband. "We're amazing, together." That night, lying in bed, Emily reflected on the incredible journey her life had become. From an insecure young woman, intimidated by the opulence of a high society party, she had transformed into a respected leader, a powerful voice in the fight against prejudice. She thought of all the people who had crossed her path, those who had hurt her, those who had supported her, and those whose lives she had touched. Each encounter, each challenge, each victory had shaped the person she had become. Emily knew that the fight was far from over. Prejudice and discrimination were deeply rooted evils in society, which wouldn't disappear overnight. But she also knew that each step towards equality, no matter how small, was a victory. As she fell asleep in Michael's arms, Emily smiled, her heart full of hope for the future. Tomorrow would be another day, another opportunity to make a difference, to continue the journey that began on that fateful night so many years ago. And so, Emily and Michael's story continued to unfold, a living testimony to the power of love, courage, and determination in the face of adversity. They had transformed an experience of pain and humiliation into a catalyst for positive change, proving that even the darkest moments can lead to light if we have the courage to ignite it. As the world around them slept, Emily made a silent promise to herself. She would continue fighting, continue inspiring, continue believing in a future where everyone could be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. And with that comforting thought, she fell asleep, dreaming of a brighter and fairer tomorrow for all. In the years that followed, Emily and Michael's story continued to inspire people across the country. The Parker Foundation grew, establishing branches in several cities and expanding its reach to address not just racism, but all forms of discrimination. Emily became a sought-after speaker, sharing her story at international conferences and even at the United Nations. Her message of resilience and hope touched hearts around the world, inspiring a global movement for change. Michael, in turn, used his influence in the business world to promote more inclusive and ethical practices. He established mentoring programs for young entrepreneurs from marginalized communities and pressured other companies to adopt more robust diversity policies. Together, they were an unstoppable force, but their journey was not without challenges. One day, as Emily prepared to give a speech at a conservative university in the heartland, She received an alarming phone call from Michael. "Emily, something happened." His voice was tense. "There was a fire at the community center." Emily's heart sank. The community center they had inaugurated years ago was the heart of their work in the city. "Was it an accident?" she asked, fearing the answer. Michael hesitated. "The police suspect arson. They found hate messages spray-painted on the walls." Emily closed her eyes, feeling a wave of despair. After all these years, after all the progress they had made, there was still so much hate in the world. "I'm coming home now," she said, already gathering her things. "No," Michael replied firmly. "You need to give that speech. It's important. I'll take care of things here." Emily hesitated, torn between the desire to return home and the responsibility she felt towards her audience. "Michael is right," a voice said softly behind her. Emily turned to see Sarah, her longtime assistant and friend. "You always said our voice is our most powerful weapon. Now more than ever, your voice needs to be heard." Emily nodded slowly, recognizing the truth in Sarah's words. She took a deep breath, gathering all her strength and determination. The speech that night was the most powerful Emily had ever given. She spoke not just about her own journey, but about the fire at the community center, about the persistence of hate and the ongoing need to fight against it. "Prejudice is like a fire," she told the silent audience. "It may seem we've extinguished it, but it takes just a small ember for it to reignite. Our vigilance must be constant, our commitment unwavering. Each of us has the power to be a fire extinguisher, putting out the flames of hatred wherever we find them." At the end of her speech, the entire audience was on their feet, applauding with tears in their eyes. Emily knew her words had touched hearts and minds, planting seeds of change that would bloom long after she left that auditorium. Back in the city, Emily and Michael faced the challenge of rebuilding the community center. But what could have been a moment of defeat turned into an incredible demonstration of community solidarity. People from all corners of the city, and even from other parts of the country, offered to help. Donations flooded the foundation, companies offered construction materials, and volunteers showed up en masse to help with the rebuilding. Amidst the charred rubble, Emily found a small, half-burned plaque. On it, it was still possible to read the words, "Change starts here." She smiled, tears in her eyes, recognizing the profound truth in that simple phrase. The rebuilding of the center became a symbol of resistance and unity. People from different backgrounds, races, and social classes worked side by side, proving that love was stronger than hate, that community was more powerful than division. As she watched the new center take shape, larger and more beautiful than the previous one, Emily reflected on how far they had come since that fateful night at the Thompson mansion. The journey had been long and difficult, full of obstacles and setbacks, but each challenge had made them stronger, each victory had propelled them forward. Michael approached, wrapping her in an embrace from behind. "What are you thinking about?" he asked softly. Emily smiled, leaning back into him. "I'm thinking about how one night of humiliation turned into a lifetime of purpose, how the hatred of a few people inspired us to spread love on a much larger scale." Michael nodded, kissing the top of her head. "You turned our pain into power, our anger into action. You're amazing, you know that?" Emily turned in his arms, looking into the eyes of the man who had been by her side every step of this incredible journey. "We're amazing," she corrected. "Together, we're unstoppable." That night, as the sun set over the city, painting the sky with the same golden and pink colors of that night. So many years ago, Emily and Michael stood hand in hand, looking to the future with renewed hope and determination. They knew the fight was far from over. Prejudice and discrimination still existed, still hurt people every day. But they also knew they weren't alone in this battle. Every person whose life they had touched, every heart they had opened, every mind they had changed, was an ally in the fight for a more just and equal world. And so, as the stars began to dot the night sky, Emily and Michael silently renewed their commitment to each other and to the cause that had become the purpose of their lives. The journey continued, and they were ready to face any challenge the future might bring, always together, always strong, always believing in the power of love to overcome hate, of light to dispel darkness. For in the end, they had learned the most important lesson of all. that true wealth lies not in material possessions or social status, but in the ability to make a difference in the lives of others. And in that respect, Emily and Michael were the richest people in the world, and so their story continued to unfold, a living testament to the power of resilience, love, and unwavering determination to make the world a better place, one heart at a time.